The year is 2552. We start on the planet Madrigal, showing a mining outpost. The insurrectionists, led by General Jean Ha, laugh at the UNSC and the Spartan supersoldiers, under whose oppressive control they suffer. Quan and her friends are shown foraging for plants that contain a heavy amount of hydrogen, enough to power ships and drug use. As they banter, Quan notices a flash of light and goes to investigate. As she nears the light, she sees an unknown ship. Frightened, she runs back to her friends, but suddenly they are attacked. The alien covenant follows Quan back to the mining outpost. The elite warriors massacre the insurrectionists. Then Silver Team arrives. Master Chief and his fellow Spartans eliminate the elites. Unfortunately, none of the insurrectionists survive except Quan. Master Chief investigates a nearby cave ruin being excavated by the Covenant. He retrieves a Forerunner keystone. As he grabs it, the device reacts to his touch, showing mysterious symbols and unlocking his childhood memories. Master Chief sees that he extracted the keystone as a child and he has a past connection to it. After he recovers, he returns to Reach with the device and Quan. On Reach, Dr. Catherine Halsey argues with UNSC Admiral Parangosky on her project for a new type of AI based on her own brain patterns. A surviving Covenant elite reports to the Prophet of Mercy at the Covenant station called High Charity. The Prophet of Mercy speaks in an alien tongue with a human who works with the Covenant for a mysterious purpose. On the way back, despite attempts by Halsey's daughter, Miranda Keyes, Quan refuses to cooperate and participate in propaganda on the UNSC's heroic actions. When she and Master Chief arrived on Reach, Chief is ordered to execute Quan. Chief is struggling to make sense of his visions. He defies the order. He disarms Quan's suspicion, saying she can't harm him with a rifle. He removes his armored helmet, for some reason. UNSC Captain Jacob Keyes gives orders to take the Master Chief into custody. The Master Chief touches the keystone, which emits an electromagnetic pulse, disabling power in the base while restoring power to his ship. Master Chief and Quan escape. Flashback, 22 years earlier, a young Master Chief follows his friend Soren outside the military base on Reach. Soren pleads with John to join him and abandon the UNSC, but John refuses. He gives Soren a 5-minute head start, then sounds the alarm. Silver Team's members, Kai, Riz, and Vanek, also discuss the Master Chief going rogue. Escaping from the UNSC, John takes Quan and the Keystone to Rubble, a secret insurrectionist base carved out in a cluster of asteroids. There the Chief reunites with Soren, now an insurrectionist leader. On High Charity, the only surviving elite from Madrigal reveals to the Council of Covenant Prophets and their ward Makee that John activated the relic. Despite hesitations from the Prophet of Mercy, Makee, the human ally of the Covenant, is permitted to track the keystone taken by Master Chief. Back on Rubble, Soren shares with Master Chief that life is better when he removed his Spartan augmentations. He can relax and enjoy the taste of food. Chief visibly struggles to understand what it means to be human. Soren introduces John to Reth, a deranged hermit held captive by the Covenant. Reth understands Covenant technology when his mind is lucid. He tells of a very powerful ring at the Covenant's disposal. Reth forces John to reveal his ability to activate the keystone and says that it leads to an alien superweapon of vast destructive power. Shaken by the revelation, John leaves Quan with Soren and surrenders to Silver Team. Halsey consoles him with the promise of a new beginning for him. She awakens a clone of herself to create Cortana. Back on Reach, Halsey completes the procedure of creating Cortana. A clone of herself is sacrificed for the AI Cortana to exist. Halsey places her AI Cortana in John's brain through a neural implant. There is resistance on both sides. Cortana resents not being given full control, and Master Chief resents an AI being put in his head that can follow him anywhere. The human woman allied with Covenant, Makee, is found by a UNSC vessel as apparently the sole survivor on a Covenant corvette. When Makee boards the UNSC cruiser, she unleashed a wave of worms. The worms envelop and kill the UNSC forces. Master Chief tries to remove his inhibition pellet and reluctantly accepts the help of Cortana. Without his suppression pellet, John explores the cityscape on Reach. He is still feeling his way through his new way of experiencing his senses. He returns to base and touches the keystone again. He can now identify the planet Eridanus II where the visions come from. He sees drawings of the Madrigal keystone and realizes he found a complementary keystone when he was a child on Eridanus II. Convinced that the second keystone is there, John and Halsey travel to Eridanus II. On the rubble, Quan finally persuades Soren to take her to Madrigal so she can reunite with and rally her father's supporters. In exchange, she promises payment. Soren warns her that he's getting paid, even if it means claiming the bounty on her head put by the UNSC. Master Chief travels to the planet. When Cortana asks what will happen if things go haywire, Halsey replies that this is why Cortana is there. Back on Reach, Spartan Kai removes the pellet that suppresses emotions. With new emotions she adds red streaks to her hair, like a rebellious teen. Soren tries to reason with Quan, who insists that her father's troops will rise up across the planet against Vanisher, led by UNSC. The pair finally reach Madrigal. As Quan and Soren make their way to the city, Vanisher dispatches his troops. He has captured the resistance forces and spread the word about the bounty on Quan. Her father's former allies refuse to help, fearing the Covenant and new UNSC-supported Governor Vanisher Grath. She and Soren attend the religious wake for her father. Quan meets a former general in the insurrection. She is told that Vanisher killed her father. Her outburst cuts short an otherwise tender scene. From her aunt, Quan learns of a mystical tribe that may have answers for her. Soren and Quan escape into the desert, following a clue, and trying to find the mystical tribe that guided Quan's father. The UNSC team arrives on Eridanus II. John, Halsey, and Cortana examine his old home. They dig up John's old drawings of the Forerunner keystones. John has flashbacks of the keystone, its location, and his childhood. Master Chief feels both joy and sorrow, missing a life he barely remembers. Master Chief and two scientists go through the woods and dig up his old buried drawing. With the Silver team pulled in to examine the relic recovered on Madrigal, while studying the new data, Miranda pieces together fragments of an intercepted message. One word is translated into Sacred Ring or Halo. With the discovery of the ring, Master Chief traces his memories to the relic he discovered as a child. Master Chief and Halsey stare at the relic dumbfounded. The UNSC extracts the relic. Then Adnan, Halsey's assistant, touches the relic and activates an ear-splitting signal that causes everyone, including the audience, to double over in pain. Master Chief touches the relic again and receives another flashback. He remembers himself being taken at night by a group of people, including Halsey. When the vision ends, he attacks Halsey, but Halsey orders Cortana to stop him and he passes out. When John wakes up, with his newfound knowledge, Covenant forces attack the camp. The UNSC suffers heavy casualties. It's all-out warfare. Banshee aircraft strafe the ground and bring down a UNSC cruiser. We see grunts and jackals for the first time. Marines on the ground and in Warthogs fight a full-scale Covenant invasion and Kai gets wounded badly. Although the Spartans manage to secure the relic, Master Chief chooses to rescue an injured Kai, who is overwhelmed because this is her first time in combat where her senses are not suppressed. A towering brute chieftain fights and beats Master Chief and secures the relic for the Covenant. The Covenant successfully retrieves the Eridanus II keystone and withdraws. As the Covenant corvette escapes the planet, a drop pod is left behind. Mei-Ki is in the Covenant pod, to play the part of a captive. John is back on Reach watching injured soldiers agonizing. Kai is also wounded. Master Chief John struggles with the difficult decisions he made in the battle. John's emotions in the last few episodes continue to erode the stoic confidence of his suppressed self. He doesn't understand his limits now, because he never had a proper relationship with his emotions. John interrogates Mei-Ki. She says the Covenant took the second keystone to the Aspero star system. The two are uneasy with each other, but the bond gets stronger as Mei-Ki insists that they are both blessed because they are humans who can connect with the relics and activate Forerunner technology. John grills Halsey on his flashbacks. Halsey admits she replaced the kidnapped children in the Spartan program with clones. These clones quickly developed the symptoms of seizures and died, while their parents never knew the truth. Parangoski removes Halsey from her position on Reach. She promotes Miranda instead. and reassigns Halsey to a remote station to do her research without interfering. This shows the conflict in the levels of UNSC command. Although she is banned from the lab, Halsey still has access. She blocks different functions when Miranda tries to analyze Makey's blood. Miranda confronts her mother. Halsey, the cold and aloof scientist, for the first time, has tears saying she should have done a better job, but she is manipulating her emotions. After John sees Miranda confirm that he and Makey share an odd DNA structure, John is told by Makey that his refusal to go along with what the relic is trying to show him will cause him physical pain. John decides to grab the relic again, despite warnings of ill effects on his health. Both John and Makey reel as he grabs the relic. John allows it to consume him, the pieces literally clicking into place. John and Makey are in a green field, but not on Reach. We hear iconic music from the game. The two share a vision of being on a Halo ring world. Quan drives into the desert, on the vehicle that she stole from Soren. She tracks the tribe of mystics in search of answers to her family's true purpose. She makes it a short way to a sandstorm. Then she encounters them. Quan is brought to the mystics' camp. She demands the same instruction that her father was given. The mystics tell her that when her ancestors settled on Madrigal, a Forerunner AI assigned them to protect a Forerunner portal that resides on the planet. They have her drink some kind of heavy water. Inside Quan's mind, she imagines facing Master Chief in combat and then sees her father. He told her, "You have strengths I never had." Jean tells Quan that the well is a portal somewhere. On Madrigal, Quan returns to where it all began, the ruined insurrectionist outpost filled with dead Covenant. Soren catches up to her. Venture and his forces arrive. Soren and Quan plan to blow up the facility. Outnumbered, Soren tries to ward off Venture's men. Quan blows the gas lines of the outpost. Venture and his men are enveloped in flames. Quan pays Soren with money recovered from the supplies of the outpost to honor their deal. A cheery Quan tells a departing Soren that,
"We'll see each other again."
And from one pointless character to another, Soren replies,
"God, I hope not."
Quan continues on her mission to find the portal and be its protector. Master Chief stares into the mirror, fantasizing about Makey. Then Chief and Makey bond physically. Miranda discovers that it was Makey behind the encrypted message that attacked a UNSC warship. She runs to warn her father and Parangoski. Cortana warns Chief that Dr. Halsey has activated the Z protocol and fully intends to capture him for her future plans. He orders Makey to call for help. He is forced to fight his other Spartan warriors Riz and Vanek. Promptly defeated, Master Chief is joined by Kai. When Makey finds help, they are skeptical of her, and when Miranda shows up telling them that it was her that attacked the UNSC warship, she grabs the small artifact that sends a massive shockwave through the air, knocking everyone out. Makey, no longer unsure where her loyalties lie, renews her bloodlust for humanity. While Makey escapes Reach, the Silver Team battle one another, which is only defused when Captain Keyes arrives. He confirms that John is telling the truth, that the Spartans were kidnapped as children. Despite the remaining tension, they stand down, while Kai runs to keep Halsey from escaping. Kai helps to apprehend Halsey, but Miranda realizes that the captured Halsey is actually a clone of the real Halsey, who escapes from Reach. Using information that Makey gave him, John tracks the location of the Covenant planet. John leads the Silver Team to stop the Covenant and recover the Forerunner Keystones. On the Covenant planet, Roskotska, Silver Team battles the Covenant forces. When John is overwhelmed, Makey activates the combined Keystones to generate a blast to save John, but she unintentionally locks John into stasis. Kai frees John from his trance by shooting Makey, shutting down the Keystone. Although John is aware again, the Silver Team is still brutally overrun. John orders Cortana to take control of his body. This way he can save his team and retrieve the Keystones without activating them. Cortana warns him that this can erase his mind permanently, but does it anyway. With this, John saves the Silver Team and escapes with them and the 2 Keystones. As they fly off, Kai asks John if it is really him behind the helmet. John only glances at her, wordlessly. My biggest issue with this series is the writing. How do you go from a fantastic fleshed-out lore to this? There was only 3 battle scenes throughout the entire $90 million production. Episode 1, 5, and 9. So if you wanted to watch the Halo combat scenes, only parts of these episodes would interest you. And in the end, it had us basically go back to episode 1 where it had all started. No real progression. All in all, this show is side plots that don't go anywhere, characters that could be from any other sci-fi property, and after it all they just hit the reset button.